Buenos días a todos. Quiero darles la bienvenida y agradecerles por acompañarnos en este evento. Mi nombre es Alejandra Zapata y hago parte del equipo de Consejería Académica y Relaciones Internacionales de Colfuturo. Hoy nos acompaña Mats and Mina, quien es el representante de University of Helsinki. Ellos nos estarán brindando un poco de información acerca de la oferta académica que tienen disponible, cómo pueden iniciar su postulación, qué opciones de financiación hay disponibles también, y estarán hablando específicamente del convenio que tienen con Colfuturo, el cual actualmente otorga un descuento del 25% para 10 personas beneficiarias de Colfuturo en programas de maestría. A lo largo de la historia de Colfuturo hemos beneficiado a más de 12 personas con este convenio. Esperamos que toda esta información sea de gran utilidad para todos ustedes. A lo largo de la charla, si les surge alguna duda o pregunta, pueden ir escribiéndola en inglés en el chat, que al final nuestros expositores les van a dar respuesta. Los invitamos a seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales, Instagram, Facebook y Twitter, para estar atentos a toda la programación que tenemos, y específicamente en nuestra página web colfuturo.org nos pueden acompañar y registrarse a todos nuestros eventos. Mats and Nina, thank you so much for your time and for your interest to present the institution. So Matt, you can start.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm gonna share my screen so you can see my presentation. It's not gonna be a very long presentation for my part. I'm just going to give you some basics about applying to the University of Helsinki and some basics about the University of Helsinki as well. I work as a marketing specialist at the University of Helsinki. So if you're going to have some really difficult questions about applications or applying, then I will have to ask you to write to the admissions@helsinki.fi email address, and that email is going to show up in the presentation at the end. But of course, Minna is an expert on her program, so she has that knowledge. Basics first. Where is Finland? Well, it's up in the north. Looking at this map, it looks like it's very cold, but actually we have snow in Helsinki in the winter time, but not in the summer. In summer we have what I would say is normal European weather, so about 20 degrees in the nice days, or even warmer. But that's where we are located. And Helsinki and the University of Helsinki is in the absolute southern part of Finland. Our international programs, we have 36 master programs. We have one bachelor program as well, a bachelor program in science. It's a very multidisciplinary and broad program, but here I'm focusing on the master programs. If you want to take a look at the programs, I really recommend our webpage, because it doesn't make sense for me to read you all the programs or show you a really long list here in this meeting. But we have 36 of them, and they cover most areas. We are a very, what I would say, classical research university. All the programs are 2 year long, 2 years of full-time study on campus. Well, of course, with COVID, that has changed, but we are hoping it's going to change back again next year to the normal on-campus studying. And actually, our campus is opened last week, so we are hopefully heading back to normal situations. All the programs are very, they have what I would say is a multidisciplinary approach. Some of them are more multidisciplinary than others, but I think the main thing to remember here is that you can tailor your degree based on your own interests, and have that discussion with your program when you start studying here. And one thing that we are very proud of is that all programs are very closely linked to our researchers, and University of Helsinki have this policy that all our teachers research and all our researchers teach. So as a student, you will be very well connected with the research field of your program. So some basics about the application process. Well, once again, I have to remind you of the fact that this is not going to be an in-depth walkthrough of the application process, but just give you a few details that might help you get started at least. What you need is an appropriate bachelor's degree, and you need to know English good enough. I'm going to talk about the English language criteria in a few slides, but of course, everyone looks at when can I apply, and there you see it. The application period is from 1st of December this year until 5th of January, and I strongly recommend you to start, if you are applying, start preparing yourself now already, or in November before the application period opens, so you can then submit and open your application. It's done online, and then you can start filling it out and submit it before the last week. I know everyone likes to do things the last week, but the problem with submitting the application last week is that then we might not have enough time to get back to you and ask you to perhaps for a missing document or something unclear. So please start filling out the application and familiarize yourself with the application criteria in time before the application period opens. Short version of the application process is you submit the application, then you receive an email. In that email, there might be very important information. For example, we are still missing your language skills, your language test or something like that. So read that very carefully. And this is of course also the one reason why it's good to be really early with the application, because at the end of the application period, all the admission advisors and admission counselors are very busy, so you have to wait for an answer. If you have a question, you have to wait for an answer longer, and then you have to, well, next month, for example. And once a decision has been made, then you will be informed. And normally the results are released, it says around April here, but I think this year the deadline was in mid-April. It can be sooner, but keep that mid-April in mind, so then you won't be freaked out. But everyone gets an email, even you're admitted or not, you will always get an email about how you did. And in that email, you will receive very detailed instructions about further actions you need to take. Submitting the educational documents could be a whole presentation on its own. I think the most important thing to remember is that photocopies or scanned documents or pictures taken with a phone or your educational documents, they are not accepted. They are never accepted. So, and we get a lot of those every year. So that's really unfortunate, because those applications won't even be academically evaluated because they are not up to our standards, or they haven't followed the instructions. And of course, if your documents are, for example, in Spanish or any other language than English, Finnish, or Swedish, then you will need to have an official translation as well. And these are all things that it might sound as much right now, but these are all things that you will get help from will get help with if you contact the University of Helsinki, especially if you do it in time. So language skills. Most of our applicants use the IELTS academic test as a way to prove their language skills. The TOEFL test is also used, but there are other ways as well, as you can see on this slide. Please note that it's the IELTS academic test that you need to take. There are several IELTS tests, but it's the IELTS academic. Once again, if you are unsure, please be in contact with our admission advisors, and you will get the correct information. Of course, this information is also available on our webpage. So these are the core things that we look at. So what's the applicability of your previous studies? Have you studied something close in the same field as the master program? It doesn't have to have the exact same name, of course not, but it needs to be in close enough so it's applicable as a way of you to prove that you know the basics in that field. And this might be confusing, especially if you apply to a very multidisciplinary program, but you will get help if you ask for it. We also look at your previous study performance, and there is a letter of motivation that you need to fill out, and that motivational letter is very important. It doesn't really help if you say, I want to come to Finland because of the nature, or I want to come to Finland because I have friends here. We are looking for academic. It's nice. It's a good reason to come to the University of Helsinki, of course, but in the application process, we are looking for academical motivation, so to say. Many programs also have program-specific criteria, such as they might ask you to write a short scientific text. And once again, familiarize yourself with the instructions, and this shouldn't be too complicated. But we are aware of that. There's a lot of instructions and a lot of criteria, but it's also academic degree you are aiming for. So I'm pretty confident you can find out what is needed if you just give yourself the time to actually read the information. In short, this is once again highlighting the fact that please start preparing your documents before the application deadline, before the application period opens, and then submit it before the application deadline. There is no, if you try to submit something 1 minute or 1 hour or 1 day too late, it's too late. We won't accept you. So please don't leave it to the last week. And a good reminder this year, when the deadline is the 5th of January, is that set a deadline for yourself that you will get the application submitted this year before. This is, by the way, the last year, wrong year. It should be 5th of January 2022. Sorry for that typo. But yeah, submit it before the end of this year, and then you have to wait. But as I said, always when you receive an email from us, always read those instructions, because most of the times there is something that you need to confirm, or some documents that are missing. When you have been admitted, you will also receive more instructions, as I already said. And one important thing is to, as soon as you are admitted and have accepted your offer, remember to apply for a residence permit, because that can be a long process. And that then, of course, another thing to keep in mind is also the housing. So also remember to start looking for housing. The international students are in a better situation than most students, because there are, if you are really quick, there are some apartments or rooms that have been reserved for international students. So you can have, that's your benefit, but you still have to act yourself. And yes, of course, when it comes to then the immigration side, University of Helsinki, we can give you information, but that's out of our hands. We can't really affect that process. A few things that are good to know. Helsinki is a very safe city. It's the capital of Finland. A bit over 500,000 of inhabitants. It's the biggest city in Finland, but we are well aware of that. It's considered as perhaps a small city in a global scale. But we have the students have very well maintained apartments, and public transport is great, and there is also healthcare, very affordable healthcare for students. So, and I think one thing that many people are concerned about is the climate. Yes, it's cold in the winter, but the houses in Finland are built in a different way than in most of the rest of the world. So it's very warm inside year around. Tuition fees for students outside of Europe depends on the program, but between 13 and 18,000 per year. Most of the programs are 15,000 per year. And looking at the cost of living, it adds up to quite a sum during the year, but it also, of course, depends much on your spending habits, what kind of lifestyle you're living. But 1 month's rent in Helsinki for a small apartment or a room is usually between 450 and 700 euros. The higher ones are from the, I would say, more downtown or more better apartments. But in general, I would say we have quite a good situation for our international students to find housing. I don't think it's the housing is not going to be the biggest challenge for coming to Helsinki. It's actually just getting the application done, and then the immigration part. And as part of that, of course, the funding. I think that's something that most of us can relate to. That was the things I wanted to tell you really briefly. Please follow us on social media if you want to. Go to helsinki.fi/admissions for the admission page. There's tons of information there. You can easily spend a night or two just scrolling through those. And you can also find links to our programs there and find your favorite program to then dive deeper into. And there's a special page for international students where you can find things like top 10 reasons why you should study at the University of Helsinki, because I haven't really told you any top reasons. So you might go there and check those out. There's a chat where you can chat with our students, not in real time, but kind of like a WhatsApp discussion that you ask a question and then they will get back to you in a day or so. Unfortunately, I think from South America, the only countries we have representatives from right now are Chile and Brazil. And I'm guess climate-wise, at least they can help you with thinking about if you want to study in Finland. And as I said many times already, admissions@helsinki.fi. That's your go-to email address if you wanna get some help. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mats, thank you so much. Minna, you can continue.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Minna Huotilainen. I'm the head of the Changing Education Master's Program, and I'm going to talk a little bit now about the program, specifically this program. So this is at the Faculty of Educational Sciences at University of Helsinki, and you can also find us in Twitter and Instagram if you're interested in following us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the program is and what we do here and how it is to study with us. So the program is a 2-year full-time master's program, and it is about education, educational sciences, and our goal is actually to change the world with the power of educational sciences. Our entrance requirement, as in all the other master's programs, is a bachelor's degree, and it has to be from a relevant field. So what is a relevant field, you may want to know. Of course, if you studied education, that's definitely going to be a relevant field. If you studied early childhood education, if you are a teacher, if you are a subject teacher, that's definitely a relevant field. But we have also people from other fields. We have, for example, music teachers who studied music in their bachelor's degree. We have teachers of mathematics who studied mathematics in their bachelor's degree. We have also people from sociology, neuroscience, psychology. So we have a very multidisciplinary group of people. We had close to 200 applicants last round, and we are selecting 40 students every year. So that's a very, very competitive selection. So there are lots of applicants. It's very important for you to note that the master's degree in changing education does not give you teaching credentials, so you don't become a teacher. Many of our students actually have the teacher credentials already in their bachelor's degree. So this is a difference between different countries. This degree will qualify you for applying to doctoral programs in Finland and also internationally. During the pandemic, we have had hybrid teaching because some students were not able to come to Finland due to the pandemic. Some students came to Finland, but then they were in quarantine or they had some flu symptoms or whatever you can imagine. So they had to attend from home, but most of our students are attending teaching in person from campus. So it is possible to also do part of the degree remotely, but not all of it. This is the Changing Education community. In the lower part, you can see some members of our staff. Myself and Hanna Postiahokas are there. We, of course, work with teaching, but also the overall management and different types of administration issues. We have also student ambassadors, and these are students that you might meet during or chat with during the admission process. So they tell you about the program and how it is to study in the program. Then in the upper right corner, you can see our tutors. So the tutors are supporting and helping the students and organizing different kinds of events and so on. And then our students also have a student organization called OSA, One Step Ahead. This is a very new organization, and they also have an online media platform at changingeducation.fi. So .fi is the ending for Finnish internet connections. And then we also have student representatives in our steering committee. So these students will tell us how students are feeling, and the steering committee will try to take the students' voice into account. So why this program? First of all, this program is completely research-based. So everything that we teach here is based on scientific research on educational sciences. We try to be very critical and constructive at the same time. So this means that when you try to change the world, you really have to be critical, you really have to find points that you want to change, but also you have to find ways in which you can change things via education. So this means that we also have to be very constructive. We always have to find good sides about, for example, international educational institutions or foreign schooling systems or stuff like that. These positive sides to build on our criticism. We also try to be as applicable as possible. So even though we work with theoretical concepts and we work with large amounts of data that come from scientific experiments, we still try to be as close to the world of education as possible. So we really actually go to the schools and to the daycare centers, and we really work with teachers and try to get our findings heard by the field of educators. And we try to be very impactful. So we really try to make a change in the world. And I can tell you that this is especially evident in our students. So our students are very much looking for ways to change the world and make a difference. Why would you come to Helsinki of all places? We have a very high-level research community in educational sciences. So University of Helsinki as a university is very highly ranked, but when you look at the field-specific rankings, you can see that the educational sciences is ranked within its field even higher than the whole university, the university as a whole. We have a lot of development goals. We have a lot of critical thinking, and in Helsinki, you know, many teachers and I think all of the society is very critical towards all things that are happening in the field of education. So you might think that since Finland is ranking highly, for example, in some of the school system comparisons, that Finns would be happy and content about our school system, but no, I can tell you that Finnish teachers and also Finnish parents and also Finnish education researchers are very critical and always trying to find a better way of doing things. In Helsinki, we have great possibilities to do neuroscience and learning psychology. I am a neuroscientist myself, and I believe that there are many things that neuroscience can actually offer to educational sciences. And this is a quite rare combination. And then Finland and Helsinki is really well known for research in equality and social justice and global responsibility in the field of education. So we have a lot of this type of work going on. And of course, as a society, Finland is a very, very equal one compared to many other societies. So here you can see the latest ranking, subject ranking of educational sciences at the University of Helsinki. So 38th in the world in the Times Higher Education ranking. So that's a very, very high ranking. How is this program going to change education? Well, first of all, some of our students, some of you guys will produce research results that will actually change our thinking. Some of our students will learn to be critical and constructive, and you will always be asking the question why, and that's a very, very important question. When our students learn to do research, so they will also know how to follow the latest results, and their knowledge stays up to date. So this is like learning to read. It's not learning to read any text, but it's learning to read scientific papers and following up the topical issues in educational sciences, even after graduating from us. And of course, this is a great place for networking. So we have amazing students, and this networking that happens in our program will make a global impact. So when you need, in the future, you need to know something, you will definitely know a person who has studied that or who is working in that field. And it will be so easy to contact that person because it's such a small number of students that everybody will be friends with everybody. How is the studying practically? This is a shared agreement of our students and teachers in the program. So this is a plan of how our students and teachers want to study. They want to give support to each other. They want to have open-minded communication, constructive feedback, active listening, being mindful and self-aware. Also joint learning from each other, giving your best and sharing your knowledge. And also we want to respect diversities, not judging each other, but appreciating the expertise and the experience and the backgrounds that people happen to have, and also respecting the differences that we have in skills. So this is a way to respect each other, and this is what we are aiming at in the practical arrangements of the studies. We have a very strong emphasis on research. This means that you get to do research when you join our program. And why do we have this kind of emphasis? Well, first of all, we want to develop our own teaching based on the research data. So we study you guys, we study our students, and we collect data from our students, and also the students collect data from themselves in order to develop their own learning and their teaching. We want to contribute new knowledge to the research community in educational sciences and educational studies, and this is a very important goal of the program. We also use research as a teaching method because we believe that if we want to teach our students how to understand educational research, it is so much easier if you have done some of that yourself. And of course, we have also students who want to continue from their master's degree towards their PhD degree, and this is a smooth transition then from this program. These are the topic areas of the program. So you can see 3 separate topic areas that are actually quite intertwined when you start thinking about it. Social justice, diversities, equality and equity in education, education and global justice. These are topics that are related to sociological aspects of education. These are very heavily studied at University of Helsinki. We have very well-known researchers in this field, and they are also teachers in our program. Then we have educational psychology as an engine for change, neuroscience in educational sciences. These are very different types of methods to understand what happens in a learning situation and why, and how can we actually help learners. And then on the basis of all of this, didactics, Finnish education system, teaching practices, teacher as a researcher, very kind of hands-on research topics that have to do with the school system and different types of practical arrangements in educational institutions. How does the studying look like? This is the map of the first year. So here you can see the names of the courses. We have 4 periods, and during all of those 4 periods, there are basically 3 courses going on. We also have academic writing courses, and the master's thesis and seminar starts already after the first fall. So in the first spring period already, the master's thesis and seminar starts. And then in the second year, the first and second period are very heavily master's thesis work. There are possibilities for optional courses. There are possibilities for exchange period in another university. So this is basically quite many possibilities for and options for studying and learning whatever is important to you in the field of education or some related fields. So with these words, I want to welcome you to the Changing Education Master's Program at University of Helsinki. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We actually don't have questions, but I have one question for all of you. That is, which recommendations or advice would you give people that are in the process of applying about the specific requirements, about time of preparations? What you can...
Time of preparation for the
Yes.
admission process. Yes, as Mats was showing, there are quite many things that you have to come up with in order to get your application submitted. So you need proof of many things. So you need to prove your studies, your study credentials. You need to prove your language abilities. But then you also need to fill in the motivation letter, and also in our program, you also fill in a short scientific text, and also you need to structure a little bit those credits that you have. So you have to let us know which of those have contained some education-related topics and which ones have contained some scientific research methods related topics. So there's quite a lot of work to be done. I don't know how long it takes from a student, but I think that you have to reserve several days for that. And sometimes you also may need to wait for some documents, for example, the translations and such things.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent point, Minna. If I just can add on that and say, yeah, I think that's, from my point of view, the problem or the challenge is that it's not entirely up to the applicant. You might be fast, but your institution might not be fast. When, for example, asking for a transcript of records, or your something that needs to be signed by your institution, or something that you just can't print yourself, so to say. And then on top of that, you need to have official translations. So if your documents are not in English, so that can take time. And of course, if you want to take the language test, depending on your skill level, you take the test, and what if you fail it the first time because you have a bad day or something? So yeah, please don't leave it to the last minute. That's the best advice I can give.
Thank you, Max. Also, we have Emilia, that she is from the embassy. If someone have questions for her, so can questions.
Meanwhile, the participants are thinking about possible questions to Minna's and Mats' comments. I could add that once or if you are accepted, then of course move on as fast as possible for all the arrangements to enter to Finland with the immigration office. As Mats said, they can give information from the university side, but it is actually very important that the student takes care of these matters autonomously, and then of course everything that relates to housing and establishing your life in Helsinki.
Okay, thank you. We have a question for Juan Pablo. How long is the time of the visa and the requirements that you have for the visa?
So I think I can take that question. Um,
Yes.
we don't have a certain limit of time, but firstly, it's quite fast to have the visa process initiated in the embassy of Finland, so that might take a week or two. But then in the immigration office, it also depends on the amount of applications at that moment. But the intention is to make the process as fast as possible, and in few months from starting the process, to be able to give the decision so that the student can start to plan moving to Finland.
Okay.
And I have to say that I don't remember right now. I don't have the amount, the price for the application, but it's some €100 totally, and we can check that amount for the application.
Okay, we have another questions. I would like to ask about the scholarships. What are the requirements to apply, and if you apply at the same time than the program?
Oh, that's a good question. We have now a new scholarship program starting, and this means that we have several scholarships for our students, and we are very heavily emphasizing countries from which we don't have so many students yet. So it will be very difficult to get a visa from, let's say, from China, because we have a lot of students from there, but from South American countries, we have very few students. So you will be great applicants for the scholarship program. The scholarship only covers the tuition fee. So of course you need funding for the living costs and so on, in addition to the scholarship if you get one.
Okay.
Yes, and I just add to that the scholarship application is done at the same time you apply to the program. It's the same form. There's a box, or there's a place where you answer the question: do you want to apply for a scholarship? Yes, no. And if you apply for a scholarship, then you fill that out. And of course, it's I would say it's impossible to say how many or how easy or how hard it is to get the scholarship, but as Minna said, it's easier this year than last year, depending on where you're from. But in general, I would say it's about let's put it this way. If a program has many good applicants, one or two of them will get the scholarship. But it's really difficult to say, because some people get a scholarship and perhaps they can't arrive. So it's a complicated situation. But it's apply if you let's put it this way. I don't know why you wouldn't apply for a scholarship if you apply to the program, because it's a box you have to tick in. Basically answer the question, do you want to be considered when we are giving out scholarships? So tick the box. And the scholarships are for students from outside the European Union. So I assume most of you guys don't have a residency permit in the European Union, which means you have to pay tuition fees, which means you also can apply for the scholarship.
Okay, thank you. It is possible to work while you are in a master, have a visa work, or?
many of our students are working part-time during their studies. So some of them work in the daycare centers, in schools in the local area. Some of them just find some odd jobs, whatever normal students' jobs. So it's quite typical. It's not recommended to work full-time. That's way too much if you think about also finalizing your degree in 2 years. But part-time working is quite typical amongst the students.
Okay. And we have another questions. What is the cost of living as international student in Helsinki?
I can, if I remember correctly, it's hard to say exactly, but we are usually counting, the number we are giving is between 700 euros and 1,000 euros per month. But you have to remember that you also have to show, when applying for a visa, you also have to show that you have a certain amount of money available for your visit in Finland. And Emilia perhaps remember that amount exactly, but I think it's around 700 euros per month or something like that. So basically the amount you have to have for the visa is smaller than what you will actually need unless you are very tight with your budget.
Yes, exactly. The visa application requires you to show that you have the means for living during the time of your studies in Finland, and it is around 700 euros per month that you need to show to have when applying for the student permission. And for doctoral students, I think it's around 900 euros per month. But as Mats said, with the student union card and all the discounts it offers and the student housing, your expenses can be below that perfectly. So actually for students, Finland is not that expensive as we used to think about the country.
No, and it's a bit misleading when you look at expensive countries in the world, and Finland is consider, it's an expensive country, but for students it's not that bad. As Minna wrote in the chat, student lunches are very affordable, just a couple of euros per meal if you have the union card, and that card you need to have as a student. Public transport is subsidized for students, so that's cheaper. Student healthcare is cheaper, almost free, and so it kind of adds up. But then, of course, you're in the situation that you are studying abroad in a country that you might never been to before, and then you're like, now I'm in the southern part of Finland. I want to go to Lapland in the winter and see the snow and the reindeers, and well, that's going to cost you. So that's the choices you then have to make. But I think if you as a student come from any country in South America, really, to anywhere in Europe, you're not going to sit the whole year in your room and study. You're going to want to see the country and see Europe. So hopefully most of you will have at least a few €100 extra to do some tourism as well.
Okay, thank you. We have another question for Alexandra. What is the score that is necessary to have to apply for the computer science master?
With score, do you mean like the grade point average?
Undergraduate, score of undergraduate.
We don't really set an exact score, but I know, and I don't have the exact numbers here right now, but I know that computer science is one of our most popular programs. So you need to have really good scores to be accepted into that program. This is a question that you might get an answer to if you write admissions@helsinki.fi, but I suspect that they won't give you an exact number because that number can be different this year. So what you can ask is what was the number last year, but it can change to this year. But That's my best advice. But the blunt answer is that you need to be really good for that program because it's so popular. It's even more popular than Minna's program. Sorry.
Okay, someone else have another question? Do you consider the GRE exam as a requirement for admission?
No.
No. Okay. Can you have both the Colfuturo scholarship and the Helsinki University scholarship at the same time?
I knew this.
Is
I knew this question was gonna
for living costs or for the tuition fee?
I can answer this because I know there is no exact answer to this. I was talking today with our scholarship expert, and the thing is, if you come through Colfuturo, you get a discount. So if you get the discount, then you can't get the 100% tuition fee scholarship because you have a lower scholarship. And it's basically his answer was, that's not a problem, we'll figure it out when we get there. So the main thing being, you won't lose money if you get both scholarships. That's not going to be a problem. But you can't get tuition fee scholarship for a tuition fee that you are not paying. That's basically the challenge there. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure we'll figure it out. And we are looking forward to that challenge.
Okay. Also, Manuela asked, I'm curious, may I ask you, why do you not consider GRE as an admission requirement? Not even for PhD programs?
I have no good answer because I am not a part of that decision-making process. I don't know if you, Minna, can answer it. PhD programs are then very difficult application process from the master programs, but unfortunately I don't have an answer for it's a good question. It's a good thing that you're curious, but I don't have an answer for that.
The entrance to the PhD programs usually happens via the master's programs. So a typical path would be that you do your master's thesis in a research group, and this research group wants you to continue for a PhD topic, and then that would be like a typical path for a PhD.
Yes, and a much easier. And that's a much easier path than to just apply to a PhD program. Of course, if you already have a master, then you need to apply to a PhD program and to get ahead in life and in your academic career. But yes, it's if you come from somewhere else than the University of Helsinki, you have a much more difficult PhD application process, so to say, because you don't know the professor, you don't know the lecturers, you don't have the in-house network to support you. Unfortunately, that's the case.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to add to this question that the PhD application processes in Finland in general are very closely connected to the research area and certain research group, and the admission is quite personal. Based on already existing connection between the research director and the leading professor and the applicant for being a PhD student. So I think there are then other means to find out the academic ability of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. After you finish your master degree, can you apply to a work in Finland?
Yes, so we actually have in the second year of the master's program, we have a course that is actually dedicated for finding a job in Finland. It's about the labor market in the field of education, and of course we also have a traineeship program. So many of our students already went to a Finnish employer during their studies as a trainee, and those are the places where they then find their jobs practically.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Emilia. Did you want to add to this?
No, go on.
I was just going to say that after you graduate, you have half a year to find a job. So you don't get kicked out when you hand in your thesis and your kind of student visa or residence permit is done. You still have many months to find a job. And as Minna said, because we are very work oriented already during the last year of the master program, that you have good chances to find a job. Of course, as everywhere in the world, some areas or some fields are easier to find work in than others, but in general you have months to figure out if you want to stay in Finland and what to find yourself a workplace. And if you find work, then the work permit of course is coming that way.
Okay. We don't have more questions. So thank you so much for your time, Emilia, Mats, and Nina, for your presentation, for all the information that provide, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Thank you, Col Futuro. Thank you, Alejandra. It was great to be here with you. See you soon.
Bye.